Welcome to today's presentation on a patient-centered practice with Updox for Practice Fusion. My name is Katie Lashy, and I'll be taking you through today's presentation. I'm the Director of Sales Ops here at Updox. You might have noticed that the phone lines have been muted as we're recording today's event, and we'll be distributing that recording as well as the slide deck to all registrants afterward. We will take questions at the end of the presentation, so if you have a question either during the presentation or if you wanted to wait to the end, go ahead and pop open that GoToWebinar panel on the right side of your screen and you can type and submit questions there. Anything that we don't get to in our allotted time, we can absolutely follow up one-on-one after the event as well. Just to give you a little bit of background about Updox as a company. So we've been around about 8 years. We've been working with Practice Fusion users for most of those years. And in the last year and a half, we've actually been able to help you in an integrated capacity for the integrated faxing. Our company was started because an actual physician was frustrated with the communications tools available to the healthcare industry, so the rest of the world kind of moved to emailing and quicker, more efficient communication, and unfortunately with HIPAA, while it protects patient information, it makes it a lot harder for you guys to communicate quickly and easily the way that the rest of the business industries had moved forward at that time. So he had this idea for really slick communication between providers that turned into an integrated faxing solution as well as direct secure email when meaningful use started coming around and saying that you needed to have these encrypted email addresses. So that was kind of how we got our start, and we've actually been able to help Practice Fusion users with both of those things. So we are the solution for meaningful use stage 2 for direct secure messaging or direct secure email so that you can communicate provider to provider that way. And then we're also your integrated faxing partner. So using those two solutions, what we try to do is help you save time, help you save money, and ultimately remain independent, which we know can be a challenge with everything that's being thrown at independent physicians now. You've never seen more patients on a daily basis. It's never been more complex tracking those encounter notes for the visits, and ultimately end users needed a break, and we've been able to offer that to Practice Fusion customers by simplifying some of those repetitive and clunky workflows that you've had to work through over the last few years. So just talking through that workflow, so what does your day look like if you're using a paper fax, for instance? Thinking step by step, every time a fax comes through the fax machine, you're sifting through that pile, distributing the faxes, collecting signatures, and jotting down notes wherever needed. You're walking to the fax machine to send it back out, waiting for that transmission report, scanning it into the computer, logging into Practice Fusion, finding your patient, going to the patient document section, and selecting upload. So all 9 steps each and every time a fax comes into your practice, which, as we understand it, is almost every other minute in most practices. Now, some of you, since we were only integrated about a year and a half ago, had moved on to digital fax solutions in a non-integrated capacity, sometimes in a non-HIPAA compliant capacity, but that's another kind of story there. But if you are using a fax server, this is what those steps look like if you're not integrated. You're opening your application on the desktop, viewing the fax. If you need a signature, oftentimes we hear that practices still print it to paper and circulate it around the practice because you don't have a signature function or a note function. If you get one fax and it has a couple patients in it or needs to go to different chart sections, you're printing that out because it's oftentimes hard to break apart faxes once they come into fax servers as well. So again, you're bringing it to paper to do that. If that's not the case, you're ultimately saving it to the desktop, which hopefully you're deleting it shortly after because that's considered data at rest. Logging into Practice Fusion, finding your patient, going to patient documents, and selecting upload. So a couple fewer steps in most cases if you're not editing or breaking apart documents, but still there's that extra step of saving it to your desktop, which can be kind of frustrating and another step along the way, not to mention the HIPAA compliancy issue. The other thing that we hear about faxing is if you are pushing that fax through the fax machine and waiting on that transmission report, if it does go through successfully and you stop thinking about that, maybe you shred the document afterwards, that's another potential cost that you might be spending money on is shredding. We often hear that practices will receive requests to resend information as many as 2 or 3 days after the original document was sent, which means that you're recompiling the document. So you get that call that says, hey, I know you sent this on Monday, but we haven't received it. Do you think you could resend it? And that in and of itself starts your process over again. So not only are you doing those 7 to 10 steps, but you're doing them more than once, oftentimes. Updox really simplifies that for you. So thanks to our close integration with Practice Fusion and the level of detail we've gone into with our integration, not only are the steps simple, but they're intuitive based on what you're used to. So you would log into Updox with the exact same credentials that you use to log into Practice Fusion, so no need to worry about a new username and password there. You would review your facts, break it apart page by page if you need to, edit or even one-click sign the document, which I'll show you here in a moment, and then you send it. So let's say you need to send it out as a fax. Super simple, hit the send button, type where you want it to go, and it goes out. Let's say you need to send it to the chart. I'm going to get a little bit more specific about what that looks like here in a moment, but basically you type the patient's name, choose the chart section, and away it goes. What's really slick about our interface as well is that you could actually do both of those things at the same time. So our same sending screen for faxing is the sending screen that you use for filing. So if you had a document that needed to be sent out and filed to the chart, you can do both things at the same time with Updox, so saving you steps all along the way. So obviously that would solve some huge pains that you have considering the fax volume that most practices have. And solving a huge pain can be tough because sometimes new solutions lead to concerns about how much time it would take to adopt them or what's it going to cost me. And we're absolutely used to that. We help over 38,000 providers in the Updox community, the majority of which are independent physicians and small practices. And some of the common concerns that we hear from both providers and office managers are that you're worried about time. So new technology can take time when you're already doing things for ICD-10, Meaningful Use 2, maybe you're getting ready for MACRA and MIPS. These things can also tend to take more time or seem more cumbersome if you feel that you're not technologically passionate. So you don't like learning new things. You don't like getting on the computer and learning a new application. You wouldn't consider yourself tech savvy. Absolutely, you're more passionate about patient care and the people that you're seeing in the end. So that's just some of the things that we keep in mind when we're going through that. We also know that your budgets are tight, so you have the costs of running a small business, and you had gone through school, again, to administer care to patients. So anytime that it comes time to evaluate a new solution against a budget, you want to see the ROI. So you don't want to see the additional cost. You want to see the replacement cost and also the time that you save going into that. And you fax a lot, so there's obviously concerns that a new partner could be expensive for that reason. So just letting you know, putting those out there, those are some of the things that we run into every day. And we're going to talk through some of the workflows to kind of put your mind at ease about how easy it is to use Updox, whether you are super passionate about technology or if you have a ton of other things going on and you don't think you have time to learn it. Hopefully those workflows will kind of clear that up for you. And then we'll also talk about the return on investment going with Updox. So not just the time that you're going to get back and the hassle that you're going to save yourself, but the dollars that you can put back into your budget with Updox. So let me show you why I say it's easy to use. This is our web-based inbox. So it was designed intentionally to look a lot like an email inbox to keep it as user-friendly as possible. So the first time you log in, you know inherently that your newer messages are going to be up top, your older messages are going to be down below. You're able to grab it and send it or archive it. You could delete it, you could route it between users. So a lot of the same functions that you would use inside of an email inbox are going to apply to this Updox inbox to keep it user-friendly. You'll also notice a thumbnail preview of each page of the fax. So as you look down, you can see what faxes are you receiving, who are you receiving them from. So that's kind of nifty. You can see who actually sent you the fax. And then you can kind of pick and choose your pages from there. These thumbnail previews, by the way, in the live environment, if you mouse over them, auto zoom, so you can take a look without even opening the message to say, what is this? And then kind of determine your next steps from there, whether it's sending it to the chart or tagging it for another user. We do have 20 customizable tags, which work a lot like a foldering system, but digital, obviously. So you could have a tag for each person in your office, or you could use the tags to designate priority or urgency or type of document if it's not ready to be filed. So a little bit of organization on the front end. Once you're ready to send to the chart, you would simply grab the pages that you want. So this is how we make it easy for you to break apart pages. Let's say I don't want the cover sheet in this example. I can just grab the second, third, and fourth page and then hit send item, and then choose to send it to the chart or send it out as a fax. But let's say this document isn't quite ready to go anywhere because I need to edit, I need to sign it, I need to fill out a form, I need to circle something important. We do have a full-scale editor that you can click on any of these thumbnails, and it'll open up into the editing page where you have the ability to type notes or numerical values, freehand draw, you can erase, you can highlight, time and date stamp. We kind of tried to think through what you would need if you were filling out paperwork. So we also have the ever important checkbox, and of course a one-click signature. So each of your users will have a one-click signature that they can apply. As a web-based application, you're going to be able to access Updox anywhere with an internet connection. So providers really like the signature feature because if they're on the go or they're between offices and someone needs their signature, they can hop into Updox, one-click sign, and kick it back to the person who needs to manage the document from there. So really slick functionality from this editing solution. And again, super simple. It's not hard to see what these symbols mean. If you hover over them, it'll actually tell you what the symbols mean as well, so that it's really easy for you to mark up a document. Now, a key piece of our integration with Practice Fusion is obviously the ability to file it to the patient's chart. And Practice Fusion was very specific about how we designed this workflow. So we needed to match the patient upload screen almost exactly. So the labels should look very, very familiar. You have a title line, you have a document type, you have a provider, and then you have the ability to sign off while filing. Now, if I am the provider signed in and I hit that sign off button, it's going to automatically designate me as that person that's signing off on it. If I'm an admin that's doing this on behalf of the doctor, then I can choose the doctor, obviously not sign, I won't have the sign off option, and I can send that into the chart for them as a task. So we have the ability to task doctors from the sending screen as well. Now, if I am a doctor signing off on a document though, that box that pops up in Practice Fusion that basically says, are you sure you want to sign off on this? Do you understand this is what you're doing? We have that same box. They were very specific about matching that functionality as precisely as possible. So put your mind at ease that it's going to be just as simple to do it with us. The one thing that is much nicer than the patient upload section when filing from Updox instead of directly into Practice Fusion is that if you did need to fax this out at the same time, you have a search for additional contacts or users box here in the top right corner where you could type the fax number or name of the contact that you're sending to and actually add that as another contact along the way. So let's say this document needs to go to the chart, but it also needs to go out as a fax. I would simply type in the name in that section there and it'll open up a fax cover sheet for me. We do customize that cover sheet based on your practice name, fax number, name and number of the place you're faxing to. If you wanted to have more than one cover sheet by department or location, we can accommodate that. And then each time you're sending a fax out, you can even put individual notes on that cover sheet. So if you were jotting something down on a cover sheet before, you have that functionality here too. So you have kind of your canned one and you can customize on a one-off basis. So you can do a title in that regard. You can choose from a library of pre-designed custom sheets that you do. And then you can also select from what we built as a templates library. So trying to save you as many clicks and steps as possible, we found that a lot of practices type the same thing or say the same thing or stamp the same thing over and over again. So what the templates allow you to do is pre-configure those individual messages with something like, we're sending the standard array of blood labs for the patient name, and then contact us with questions. So those types of messages that would have otherwise taken you a minute or 50 keystrokes to type out, you can simply select from the templates library and send it off. Now, once you do send it off, we had spoken about the frustration in completing the 7 to 10 steps to manually fax something out over and over again when someone asks you to resend something. What we do that's really nice is not only do we make it easy for you to know when something fails, so you're not standing at the fax machine waiting for that transmission report, because we're going to give you a fax failed notification right at the top of your inbox. If a fax failed, we're going to tell you why. We're going to include the original attachment, and we'll show you the number that you were faxing it to. So it's really easy for you to hit send item and send it again. So let's say their fax machine's offline, or if they're still using a manual paper fax and their fax machine is busy because they're sending or receiving a big document. By the way, you wouldn't have that problem with Updox. You have the ability to resend that document without having to sit and wait for it. In addition to that, that situation where you send something successfully and they misplace it or say they didn't receive it, you can always hop back into the sent box located just below the inbox, and that's going to operate a lot like the sent box in Gmail, where you're able to see all of the faxes you've sent out, all of your chart imports. It's completely searchable, so you can search by patient name or the number that you sent to retrieve whatever you sent to that practice, and with a few quick clicks, send it again instead of having to redo the work. So those are some of the workflows associated with the faxing, both from grabbing a fax as it comes in and sending a fax out. We do have the ability to pull documents from the chart to fax out as well, using our virtual printer driver. So basically what that means, during implementation, or you can even set it up on your own, most practices do once they move forward with Updox, we have a virtual printer. So just like you'd install any other printer on your computer, you'd install the Updox printer, and that's going to make digital copies of whatever you want from the chart. You can move it into Updox, and then once it gets to Updox, you can send out from there. That digital printer is going to actually work anywhere on your computer too. So if you had something that wasn't necessarily in Practice Fusion but needed to go out as a fax, maybe some sort of a form, you could actually print that into Updox and fax out as well. For forms especially, if you keep a form that you send often with faxes, you can keep a blank copy on your desktop. And in addition to being able to print into Updox, you can also drag and drop documents into Updox. So a lot of really easy ways to pull information into the system to send out as well. So that's just kind of a broad overview of the fax. I also wanted to talk about a targeted messaging solution that we have available for Practice Fusion customers. And this is relatively new. I think we came out with at the tail end of 2016, and what it allows you to do is send targeted messages to both contacts and patients. So thinking through how you would do this in today's world, someone would probably pick up the phone or pick up a stack of postcards and start addressing them to get the word out. What Updox makes it easy to do is call, text, or email in an automated way that makes it look like you're thinking of them, saves you a ton of time, and communicates with them in kind of a cutting-edge way. So when would you use something like this? When would you need to reach out to a batch list of contacts or patients? Let's say the office or the practice is closed and your patients need to be informed of the closure. We also see a ton of usage for Blast for no-shows. So if your patients are not showing up for their appointment and you need to get them back on the calendar, you can load them in really easily to send that message out. We've also seen it used to drive revenue for flu clinics, or year-end screenings for the reimbursements there. You can use it to maintain relationships with patients, kind of give them warm and fuzzies with a birthday greeting for all patients with May birthdays, for instance, or even messages to everyone that you saw last week, thanking them for coming in. That type of thing would be a really great use case for this. You can also use it to satisfy CMS requirements, so distributing educational content to patients. So if you had everyone that had a cholesterol screening and you wanted to send them something by blast message, you could shoot them over a link by text or an email. And then from a contacts perspective, the two main use cases we see for this would be if you're opening a new practice and you're seeking out new referral sources, letting people know that you're new to the neighborhood, you could send that message out as a phone call, text, or email. Or if you have regular referral sources, keeping them in there as a running list so that once a month you send them a message thanking them for their business and just trying to stay top of mind. So those are just some use cases of when you would use something like that. Some specifics about the tool itself would be that you're able to send phone call, email, text messages. You're saving the time and money over the manual processes that you would be doing for that. And it's just maintaining better relationships for the patients and contacts in your Rolodex in a less time-intensive way. Sending the message, super simple. You would just select your medium, whether it's an email, telephone, or text message. Pulling your list is as easy as going, if it's a patient list, to reports and then patient lists and then importing to Updox. If it's a contact Rolodex list, you can just create them as needed and have kind of an ongoing running list inside of Updox. And then when you're ready to send it, you select the list that you're sending to, and you can key a message on the fly, or again, this is another great place to create templates if you're going to do this on a recurring basis. and then you would go ahead and hit send, and it'll let you know how many people fit into that list and what message is going out, and then you can confirm, and away it goes. These on-the-fly messages are super simple to write, and you can personalize them with things like first name, practice name, and phone number. Or if you do templates, you can do the same thing. When you're writing templates inside of Updox, we try to make it, we try to help you understand what your patient or your contact is going to be receiving. So when you're drafting a phone template, for instance, you can type it out and then call yourself so that you know what your patient or your contacts are hearing before they hear it. So you can kind of control that reaction to that message. We do the same thing with a text message. We show you a little iPhone there so that you can kind of preview what that's going to look like before it hits the end user, just in case you bump into any questions about it. Now, from a list perspective, you have the ability to pull in your full patient list from Practice Fusion, and then you can kind of cut it up using age, gender, that sort of thing, or you can even pick and choose certain individuals just by searching for their name and adding them to a list. So that's kind of how you would build the list once we get them in there. We always try to offer an element of reporting as well when it comes to Updox, so that if you are using this and you want to know how many people are receiving your messages, you can hop in here at any given time and see why messages were successfully or unsuccessfully delivered, and kind of adjust your contact information from there, because maybe you have a phone number that's no longer up to date. So that's kind of a broad overview of our Blast messaging tool, so the phone, text, and email messages, as well as our integrated fax, which we've been doing now for about 1.5 years with you all. I did want to talk through kind of the cost. So just in case we have someone on the line that is looking at the hard numbers of what Updox is going to mean for their practice from a budgeting perspective. A lot of times when you ask a practice how much they fax, they'll say a lot. And if you ask how much they're spending on faxing, they start to kind of do the math in their head. But there are a few things that they forget about. What, in our experience, for every 5,000 pages, a practice is spending about $162, and that comes from the toner cartridge from a Brother Fax. Super expensive, $70 to $80 per toner cartridge there. $50 for a case of paper, and we've heard anywhere from $20 to $40 for a fax line. And those are just the hard costs. So from a time perspective, that's going to be 2 minutes per fax, which is a conservative guesstimate based on the 7 to 9 steps that we had reviewed earlier in the presentation. But assuming that it does take 2 minutes for each fax when it comes to walking to and from, transmission reports, scanning, duplicating, shredding, all of that, it all comes up to about 55 hours. From a faxing perspective, with Updox, Practice Fusion customers can get started for as low as $60 per provider per month, and we're going to include 500 fax pages per provider per month. So in addition to the time savings, from a cost perspective, it's predictable, a low base fee for the value that you see from that solution. And we also, from a cost perspective, have a promotion available to webinar participants today. So it is May, so our promo code this month is Fiesta. And if you register by Tuesday, May 16th, we're discounting the base fee by 15% for your first 6 months as a customer. So a really, really great time to get started, see the value of Updox. We do offer a free trial period to all new customers, and we also offer training and free technical support to all of our customers as well. From there, it's a month-to-month service, so we're kind of on the hook to keep you happy as a customer, because you are not kind of tied down. I know that sometimes when you get into a contract kind of a deal, there's a lot of attention up front, and it's not really a long-lasting attention kind of situation. So our no contract model is definitely to the benefit of the customer to make sure that we're keeping you happy and seeing the value of Updox. And we certainly keep you up to date when we have new solutions coming out to the base as well.